What's up, guys? This video is not sponsored by you-know-who. It's only the best. Anyways, hey, Ashby Farms, and this video is a shout out to a conversation I had with a guy by the name of James Lee. Long and short is I love talking about bee stuff. Lots and lots of bee stuff. And one of our major focuses is genetics and really good VSH stock. So Corey and I have been very busy lately. We have been trying to work on getting our third round of Apid Guard treatments on this week. And so James reached out to me and he said, hey, I noticed it seems like you're treating your bees. And the answer is yes we are. I am not a treatment-free beekeeper. So we used Apid Guard this year. I am trying to breed a better bee. And so it's difficult to, the big question is, how do you test if you're treating? So think of it this way, like the mites have been growing all summer, and about time the mite loads are at their peak in August, then how do we identify colonies then if we treated last year and we turn around and treated this year? And so we've got some tests that we can run. To start with, all of the three tools I'm going to discuss, a Harbo Method, UBO, and a freeze brood assay, are three tools in your toolbox that you can use to help assess as part of your selection criteria for your breeder queens. So let's discuss those three real quick. Harbo test is where you sit down with either a magnifying glass or some sort of magnification glasses, and you use a pair of tweezers and you uncap cell by cell. Your first selection is, and by the way, this is just a quick once over. This is not the very detailed way how to do it. I know there's going to be somebody out there who critiques, but your quick and easy way, like let's say you've got 30 hives and you want to sample them all really quick. You're going to spend approximately 15 to 20 minutes on each hive to do a first quick assessment. Your sample size is 100 cells. You're looking for a late-staged pupa, usually purple-eyed or later, and you're going to take a pair of tweezers, you're going to pull back the wax cappings, you're going to extract the pupa, and you're going to look at it, and you're going to identify how many juvenile mites that you see. And without diving into it, the whole criteria and selection is pretty firm, but for me, when we're doing quick assessments, I don't want to see any, and I mean any, mites, juvenile or adult whatsoever. If the colony has mites that they're not already taken care of, it doesn't make my criteria selection grade. It doesn't make the grade for me. So while that is not exact to the Harbo method, it's just a quick solution. The second test that you can do is a freeze brood assay. It's where you take, and you can YouTube all this, but it's where you just take a frame of brood, same stage, you put a piece of PVC over it, you dump some liquid nitrogen on it, you let it sit for like 5 or 6 minutes, and as the liquid nitrogen boils off, it freezes the brood underneath. You stick that brood back in the hive, come back 24 hours, you take it out, and you can see how many of the larvae were uncapped and removed. And you want to see like complete removals would be a high scorer. And what that tells you is that the hive is hygienic, not specific to Varroa, but you do have a hygienic colony. So it's likely that they're going to have less of any of the brood diseases, chalk brood, EFB, any number of other things. We're looking for hygienic, so that's another tool. The third and newest test on the market this year is what's called UBO. That stands for unhealthy brood odor. And to me, that is going to be the ticket in the future. I really like it as a tool in which we can quickly test a number of colonies. So you should be able to test 100 colonies in a day if you're really cranking it out and everything's picture perfect. During our test, my operation wasn't picture perfect because I'm working a day job and it's hard to manage the number of colonies that we do. So instead, we only tested 23. I'm not going to waste a test on a colony that doesn't look like it's making the grade. But long and short, if you had everything in a picture perfect world, you could test 100 colonies in a day, I do believe. And so UBO, it doesn't matter the time of year. It simply measures the adult bee response. And basically it's tricking the colony with a pheromone to think, oh man, the larvae underneath the wax cappings are emitting a stress indicator, whether that's a pheromone, hormone, whatever. It's telling the colony, hey, we have Varroa mites. We are stressed out. And so the test is then in a 2 hour time period. So you have your sample size, you spray it on there, stick the frame of brood back in the colony. You only wait 2 hours, not 24 hours like the freeze brood assay. And then you come back and in exactly 2 hours, you remove the frame, and then you count anything from a pinprick on if they've disturbed the wax capping. And essentially what they're going to do is check on that pupa. Then that counts, and what we're looking for is in the sample how many of the capped larvae were checked on, and that gives you a score. You're looking for 60% or better. So the closer to 100%, the higher the score, the better the genetics. Now that we've addressed the 3 different tools you can use, Mother Nature does not like too much of one thing, ever. So as a bee breeder, we're looking at our selection criteria. If I only select for VSH, then we're going to have some unintended consequences. So let me describe maybe how some of what we do. We have colonies 20 miles in all directions. Unless they're from the same genetics, or unless people are moving bees around regularly, we have different genetics, 40 miles apart. So even the swarms we catch, we isolate those. And my first criteria is for selection is how do the bees overwinter. So we want to watch them through, they go through winter, we don't see them, and how well do they brood up in spring. I want to see big numbers, so we raise mainly Italian stock with some Carniolan influence, and how fast the bees brood up, how fast they come out swinging at a winter is criteria selection number 1. Criteria selection number 2 is who's making a lot of honey. It wouldn't make sense to select for Varroa Sensitive Hygienics if the bees then are going to pull all the brood out and then not make any honey for it. Then there's not enough bees to make honey. That's not a great selection criterion. So for me, as it turned out, if you watch our UBO video, our highest scoring UBO tests were also some of our top honey makers. We're in the honey biz, and we are in the business of selling nukes and queens. So I need early spring. I need the bees to ramp up in population to give us a lot of splits. That's part of my income stream. I need really good genetics. That's part of our income stream with queens. And I need really good honey makers because we make honey. I mean, I hate to say it this way, but I don't care if you make honey. My business depends on me making honey. It's just business. It's not mean. It's just a fact. I know it's kind of crass. I'm sorry at home. I'm going to offend somebody. But long and short is, I need my bees to make honey. So when we look at these selection criteria, it really narrows down the field. We started the year with about 300 colonies, and it narrows it down to about 30. Pretty quick and easy. It's not real difficult to know who's your winners and who's your losers. So anybody at home can do this, and here's the thing, we're going to rinse and repeat. Back to the whole point of this topic is Varroa Sensitive Hygienics. So, in talking with, this just popped in my head. So Phoebe Snyder is a good friend of mine. She's a co-owner with Kara Wagner of Optera, and she's been on my channel a number of times. And Kara and Phoebe were both involved with the UNC Greensboro, UNC College, UNCG as we call it. They have a bee lab there, and this is an unpublished study from this year. But long and short is, and to touch on this, Phoebe told me, alright, so Phoebe says, in our unpublished study, where there is more genetic diversity, they noticed less of a mite count, or more hygienic bees. Keith Delaplane, University of Georgia, did a talk on Bob Benny's channel about the same results. We have known for some time that the more genetic diversity involved in a breeding operation, then the more hygienic the bees. With our operation, I am not going to be treatment free for at least 5 years until I see certain criteria met. I'm not betting my whole operation financially on going treatment free, because it might spread disease and kill bees. However, if I can get my bees to better manage the mite loads in the colonies, and then we see less effects of, say, chalk brood, moths are given. If we see less effects of chalk brood or any other bee disease because the bees are more hygienic, that's a win for me. I'll take that. That's the kind of bee I want to breed as a breeder. So what we did, we brought, by the time we're said and done this, by the time we're said and done this fall, we'll have 200 colonies next spring. We've got a central point, and around it, about a mile out, we've got 30 hives in the center, and we'll have 170 in the outliers and 6 yards around it. Actually, I take that back. 7 yards around it by the time we're said and done in about 3 weeks. And the whole point is we're flooding this area with great genetics. Remember that the drone population, the drones are genetic identicals to the queen mother. Phoebe called me with a question of how important is UBO high scorers, or another way to word her question is, how important is VSH stock in that breeding area? My goal is that somewhere around 50 to 60% at the end of this 5 years would all be high scoring VSH queens. The reason being is the following spring, the drones in that area are what they call haploid. They're genetically identical to the queen mother. So back in the early 90s, for those of you who don't know, there was a couple of lines, the Starlight and the Midnight line. Basically, they bred these bees to the point of, they inbred these bees to the point of almost colony collapse. On a DNA level, what you get is the mother and the father. And if you're inbreeding, your alleles are same. And this causes much of the colony to abort any of the young larvae once they realize that the queen mother has bred with a drone that's genetically identical, and hence the colony collapse. And what they found is later on in both of these lines, but these tests, is that when they brought in a completely different genetic line, and what you get is different on the DNA strand, you breed a super bee. Like, every problem goes away. The bees are just unreal. Well, the next generation, the F1s, half of that DNA strand splits, and now we bring in new genetics, and usually within 2 generations, those traits are lost because you mixed up all the genetic material again. from the original foundation. So then the question's poised, not only how important is VSH stock in our drone area, but how do we continue that year after year? Well, what I can do as I mentioned, I would like half, or at least half, of my drone stock to be a VSH. That way, see, for us, if the virgins they go out like a mile. Well, in the center yard where the 30 colonies are, you've got drones that go out only maybe a half a mile. So when these virgins get outside of that half-mile radius of their own drone stock, I want them to run into my drone stock. Some of that drone stock will be VSH. They are identical to the queen mother, so if they're high testers on the VSH, on the Harbo test and on the UBO, we want those drones in the air. Also, I will continue from my out yards 20 miles away. As they breed in those areas, each spring we will find who's our best overwintered colonies, and we bring those into the center nuke mating area. And so we're constantly adding in the genetic diversity there from the best performers based on other characteristics, particularly that time of year, which is really only one. How well did they overwinter? They haven't had time to be judged on how good of honeymakers they are. And certainly we haven't had time. I do my UBO test in May. So it's like the only criteria we have to go on is who overwintered well. That's a criteria worth researching and going after. But we don't want too much of a good thing. So maybe half of our stock is high in the nuke yard. Half of our stock is VSH in its high-scoring Harbo and UBO. And the other half is just good old-fashioned, who is a good-looking colony that comes from experience. When you flood an area like this, the results are... Let's back up to the talk that Keith Delaplane did with Bob Benny. They found in the study where the virgins had bred with more than 30 drones, 30 different drone semen, that the mite count was significantly lower than where the queen had only bred with less than 30 drones. Is part of this study, or in a different test, I should say, Dr. Tarpey at NC State has apparently documented a virgin queen having bred with 71 different specimens of drone semen. I would go to say that in Mother Nature, this is highly unlikely. But in a case of what we're building, where we've got 200 colonies in an area that's 9 square miles, it's 3 miles by 3 miles, it's very possible. If you have 30 plus different drones, it leads to what's called polyandry. You want a lot of, as the queen produces eggs, there's different basically sperm from the drones. They mix with the eggs she's laying, and you get different genetics within the colony. The more genetics you have within a colony, the more hygienic. I forget which study I was reading, maybe it was the Keith Delaplane video, but what they found is if they just pulled, say you've got 9 frames of brood in a colony, you leave 3 frames from the parent colony, and you bring 3 frames from this colony and 3 frames from this colony, and you put them in. So now we've got 3 different colonies brood, and we flash forward 6 weeks. So 3 weeks to get all that brood hatched, 3 more weeks for those bees to become foragers. And they retested that center colony. And what they found was that the hygienic behavior is through the roof because you've got different genetics from 3 different colonies. They retested that same colony 6 months later and found out it did not score the same. Questions why? Well, temporarily, the beekeeper created a scenario where you've got all kinds of different genetics. Well, how can we build that long term as bee breeders. One way we can do it is to flood an area with lots of different genetics, lots and lots, and based on different criteria as I've described. And then you look at the results. You've got these queens that are just packed full of semen. We would expect them to last 3 years, maybe more. Being that they're in such a drone flooded area. And not only that, but we're breeding queens only the right time of year. For us, that's March, April, May in Piedmont, North Carolina. And slowly over time, we're going to build better and better stock. The qualities of that stock can be lost within 2 generations, I would agree. But in breeding a better bee, somebody has to take the risk, take the bet. At least we can prove that it lasts 2 generations. I've talked with a few other queen breeders whom I respect. I speculate as we track the genetic lines, there will be a few lines that 6 or 7 generations down the road, they continue to show. There will be a few genetic lines that really stand out. It's a numbers game. So as we track these genetic lines and we test them over and over, the F1s, the F2s, the F3s, the F4s, we're going to find a few colonies where this line of queens just continues to show VSH traits, and they're great honey makers year after year after year, and we're going to continue to breed off them each and every year. Rinse and repeat. That's how I'm making my name as a bee breeder. So I don't claim to be awesome. I don't claim my bees are something. What I do know is 7 out of our 30 colonies that we tested were high scoring UBO. They're all high scoring Harbo assayed. Harbo assays showed that there weren't any mites present. The UBO doesn't matter what the mite load is. It doesn't matter if they just had a mite bomb a half mile away and they went and robbed it out and brought home all the mites. The UBO simply shows you what's the response of the hive, no matter what's going on in the brood. Using these tools as a bee breeder, I think is really going to make our stock stand out. And if I fail, I fail. I'm not, none of these opinions are set in stone. None of these opinions, sorry, if I was being called for dinner. None of these opinions are really set in stone. I am open to all of the science, all of the research. My opinions are very malleable if we find something that works better. What I can tell you is for 10 years, we've known that genetic diversity is the way to go in order to get better hygienic behavior. So, guys, thank you for listening to my rant and following my channel. I'll try to do some more videos coming up.